16 today. I'm Zach Bruhl. We will get into our top stories in just a moment, including a look back at some protests on President's Day throughout the region yesterday. But first, let's take a look at how weather's shaping up so far this morning. It's calm so far across Western Oregon as we kick the day off, but not anticipating that waiting lasting for very long. We're in between two rain systems that are going to be making some impacts in the region. Yesterday, you did see a little bit of moisture, but as you can see through the Hyatt Tower cam, pretty dry out there today. We do see a little bit of a drop off in temperatures because the lack of cloud coverage overnight allows us to cool off just a little bit, but just a touch, and still keeps us in the mid to low 40s range along the I-5 corridor, and the coast still in that mid to upper 40s range. Similar stories you head down towards Douglas County, except the very southern portions of the region, and as you head east as well. If you get to the Cascades and over, it's much cooler out that way. South coast in the mid to upper 40 range as well. Yesterday, like I said, a little bit of rainfall, especially out on the coast. Newport getting hit the quote hardest, only a couple tenths of an inch, but that's basically all we saw across the region. And we'll see it pick back up later today into Wednesday and a little bit on Thursday as well. Main totals out on the coast up over an inch, everywhere else in that ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch range. We may see some snowfall as well in that time, but not anywhere except really the Cascades. We'll see a little bit of accumulation in the Santiam Pass, Mount Bachelor, Willamette Pass area. So for you skiers and snowboarders waiting to hit the mountains, maybe some freshies for you out there later this week. We now take you to our live shot buddy, LSB, giving us a peek at the Tuesday morning traffic flow. Welcome into Junction City this morning, where light traffic flow is existing along Highway 99. He's there at 18th Street, looking down Ivy Street, excuse me. Like I said, though, light to medium traffic flow, we'll call it, on some dry road surfaces with warm enough conditions that you're not worried about any slick patches of roadway on your Tuesday morning commute. And because of that, the most recent check at Trip Check tells us no accidents or delays out there across Western Oregon, so you've got smooth sailing on your Tuesday morning commute. There's our live shot buddy with a double thumbs up Tuesday out there. He's going to head to his next mocha here right after the hit. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, ho, ho.
Hundreds protested against President Donald Trump, billionaire Elon Musk, and the White House's policies out in the rain to demonstrate at Eugene's federal courthouse on Monday, joining a national call to action. NBC 16's Tiffany Lewis spoke with the President's Day protesters and has their story.
People gathered at the downtown Eugene federal courthouse protesting Trump's administration in what they call anti-democratic policies, joining a nationwide call for 50 protests, 50 states, one movement.
Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like!
At least 500 people gathered near the Mill Street and 8th Avenue intersection in front of the Wayne L. Morse federal courthouse. Dubbed No Kings on President's Day, the rally comes less than 2 weeks after the last round of widespread rallies and protests. The 50-51 movement was started by grassroots organizers spreading the word on Reddit forums, Instagram, Blue Sky, and other social media platforms.
It's so important to me that we are visible and that Musk and Trump, that somebody tells them that the American people are not going to lie down and just take this and go willingly into the night. We are going to fight for our democracy.
Protests follow a series of controversial executive orders signed by President Trump and actions led by billionaire Elon Musk's Doge organization. One demonstrator said she's worried about political instability and the potential loss of federal program benefits as the White House moves to lay off thousands of federal workers in an effort to shrink government and cut excessive costs.
I don't want my family to lose their benefits and their housing and their insurance.
And hundreds of cars drove by, many honking their horns in support of the peaceful protest.
We need to have empathy and we need to have diversity. We need to have inclusion. We need to have people who are willing to speak out when things aren't right.
In Eugene, I'm Tiffany Lewis reporting.
Thank you, Tiffany. And as she explained, this was a nationwide protest, including multiple locations throughout the country and throughout our state of Oregon. This is how things looked in Portland near City Hall, with over 1,000 protesters voicing their concerns. In addition to the main metros of Portland and Eugene, there were protests in other spots like out on the coast. We received these photos from people out in Coos Bay. We were told there was a heavy presence of Bureau of Land Management employees on the south coast. many of whose jobs are at stake. Over 250 people showed up near Highway 101. And behind me is a live look at the White House this morning. Today, White House officials are in Saudi Arabia meeting with Russia, seeking to end a war that is in Ukraine as negotiations get underway without Ukraine at the table. Here at home, nationwide protests are ramping up with more federal worker cuts raising safety concerns. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest from D.C.
High-level talks to end Russia's war on Ukraine beginning this morning in Saudi Arabia, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and other Trump foreign policy advisors sitting down with their Russian counterparts. For now, Ukraine is not at the table for negotiations that could trade away Russian-seized Ukrainian territory. Ukraine's president has told NBC News his country will not accept a deal it's not part of.
We have to be there, otherwise it's not acceptable.
President Trump says Ukraine will be included in negotiations. An administration envoy is expected in the country this week.
Elon Musk has got to go! Hey, hey!
Here at home, a President's Day of protest across the country over federal worker job cuts through Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. The latest layoffs include close to 300 FAA employees, just as real-world incidents are raising alarm. The Transportation Secretary says no air traffic controllers or critical safety staff were let go. Those who were cut say remaining workers are stretched thin.
Their workload has drastically increased.
And NBC News confirmed the top Social Security Administration official resigned after refusing to give DOJ teams access to sensitive information. After similar concerns were raised at the IRS, the White House insisted DOJ would not go through the records of regular Americans.
What we're talking about is at the programmatic level, being able to analyze and assess for signs and symptoms of fraud.
Despite protests, the Trump team pressing ahead. And NBC News has learned the Trump administration is preparing to fire hundreds of high-level employees at Homeland Security. Sources familiar with the matter say these are not just cost-cutting moves, that they're aimed at people the administration sees as not on board with its goals. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
It is now 7 minutes past the start of the 6 o'clock hour. Straight ahead on NBC 16 today, John Mayer's going to be waiting on the other side of this commercial break. He is just so eager to give you a look at his forecast. We'll see what's expected weather-wise in Western Oregon here in just a few minutes. But first, it's time for a coffee break.
This coffee break is sponsored by Lithia Toyota of Springfield. Track storms. Download the John Mayer.
If you remember back to yesterday, we saw a whole lot of pink out there here in the Cascades, from winter storm warnings to winter weather advisories, but now significantly less so. The only thing we do have is what's still clinging, some of those lasting winter weather advisories further to the east. But even that, well, that's a little too far outside of the viewing area. For most of us, we're actually starting off with a relatively clean slate when it comes to any weather alerts in this forecast. Not to say things won't get interesting, though, but we're just talking rain. Much like yesterday, any snow that we see Cascades, but even then, we're really talking the higher elevations down in the southern Cascades, down towards spots like Crater Lake, maybe less so here in our backyard. But with that rain rolling through, it ultimately turns into a pretty similar outlook to what we had at times yesterday, especially into the afternoon and evening hours. It's that consistent shower activity. I mean, it looks like it's going to be just a full-on downpour, but maybe not so much. We're not necessarily expecting the most impressive rain totals, but we are expecting that rain to really keep us soggy all day long. Tonight, though, into tomorrow morning, now we get that rain that packs that extra punch, and suddenly we could be looking at more impressive rain totals as we make our way through the day on Wednesday. That's when the cold front itself swings through. So in the short term, while our actual rain totals likely only adding up to maybe 1 to 2/10 of an inch, kind of similar to what we saw yesterday, it's all about what happens on Wednesday, because now these numbers, they start to ramp up a little more consistently, starting to get some more impressive rain totals moving through for the middle of the week. So how long do we keep that active weather going? Does this turn into a washout as we head towards the weekend? We'll get into all that and more coming up in just a few.